Good evening. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Thank everybody for attending. As you probably already know, Saturday is Election Day. That's this Saturday, September 21st, 2015. There are three proposals on the ballot. Now, probably the most important proposal is the school board tax renewal proposal. And this evening we're going to ask Marlene King to present her comments with reference to her long-standing beliefs on the subject. And then we're going to ask that the school board member, District 6, Justin Centini, give his presentation, and to be followed by questions and answers. But let me review just briefly the other two proposals. There's a proposal on the ballot to rename City Parish President, Lafayette Consolidated Government, change that to Mayor President of Lafayette City Parish Government. Yes. And a yes vote makes the name change. A no vote means the name will remain the same. Okay. And then there's another City Parish Zoning Commission proposal, and it simply increases the members of the commission. The 5-member commission increases it from 5 members, expands it to 7 members. So under this proposal, of the 7 members, 4 members will be from the city and 3 will be from the parish. A yes vote increases the zoning commission to 7 members, and a no vote means the members will remain at 5. But the more important proposal is the school board tax proposal, and we'd ask that Marlene King give her comments, and then followed by Justin Centini, the school board member.
Thank you. I just have a few comments about my opinion about raising taxes for the school board. I'm not an accountant, but I do have some experience with budgeting. Having raised a family, I know what it is. Having studied the school board expenses and their budget, I think I know something about that too. As a family, if we feel like we don't have enough money to meet all the things that we want, before we go around the taxpayers and pass our hat around and ask them to give us money through food stamps, I think we need to examine our own budget and see where we have to cut. And of course the government would examine this too, where we can cut. Same thing with the school board. I have examined it. Last year, the school board spent in excess of $450,000 to fight the superintendent for something like he had hired a man to clean the schools without a high school education. So the superintendent put him through school and he got that diploma. But they were angry because he bypassed them and broke the rule. Is that worth $450,000 of our children's money? If they've got that kind of money, now the last thing this year, which I spoke to Dr. Aguilar about, they wanted to have a trademark called Success by 6, is it 6 or 5? Success by 5, okay. Well, the United Way fought them. They said, no, that's too close to we have. We have Success by 6. You can't do Success by 5. So what did the school board do? They were ready for another fight. There's no law firm in Lafayette who wants to put up with this kind of monkey shine because it's embarrassing. So they went to Baton Rouge. They hired the law firm of Roy, Kiesel, Ford, Duty, Thurman, and it didn't really go through, but they were charging $225 an hour, $165 per hour for more experienced ones. Just going on and on. I can go through all the experiences, all the expenses here. And then after they were spending money, that law firm told them, you might as well just quit because you're going to lose the battle. So they decided to get another trademark, On Track by 5. Well, when all this was going on with the Baton Rouge law firm, I called Dr. Aguilar and I said, why do y'all need a trademark? Look at all the money it's costing. He said, because it's going to make us look good. I said, look good? Really? How about us being good? And if we're good enough, we're going to look good automatically. Why spend all that money? So I'm here to tell you, if they have access to all this money, they have the resources, why are they passing the hat to us and asking us to give them more money? I mean, that's digging into our personal pockets when they've got the money right here or they have the resources for it. When they are ready to fight something, they put up the money and they give it a good fight. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Maureen, for your comments. We're going to get the opposing view, and I'm going to ask Justin a few questions, but I would ask that he give a little history, and I'm sure that with reference to the renewal. So take your time. You've got the floor for as long as you want.
All right, I would never oppose Ms. Marlene. Sure. I don't know if I'm the opposing viewpoint here. I will say a couple of things about the points she made. You're absolutely right. We can do better. We can always do better, budget-wise. The attorney's fees you presented, I think, were a big reason why you have almost an entirely new school board this year, because the school board you referenced was the prior school board fighting the superintendent, and then 7 of us got elected to take their place, and we've cut those attorney's fees by half, and we're still working to cut more of them, because I wholeheartedly agree with you that we don't need to spend $500,000 on attorneys for a school system. As far as the Success by 5, that was a program instituted by Dr. Cooper for sure, and it was very close to the United Way's name, and we got sued by the United Way, and we hired the law firm that Ms. King mentioned strictly to respond to the lawsuit. We're unable to respond ourselves without an attorney, and so it was a very minimal amount of work that we retained this law firm for. It was strictly to respond so that we could put the matter to rest and not fight. We're not interested in fighting the United Way for sure, and that was when we came up with the On Track by 5 name, which was not used and would certainly describe what we're doing. I can't speak to Dr. Aguilar's response to it. That's not my feeling about it. I felt like we were doing very well to respond and not drag our feet, put our heads in the sand. So let's go ahead and act professionally and respond. This is how a public body does whenever they come into any conflict with a private organization. So anyway, that's my response to your points, and thank you for bringing those up. The tax itself is over 40 years old, and 10 years ago, I think 11 years ago, in 2004, it was passed with 67% favorable rating by the voters of Lafayette Parish, the entire parish. It's reasonably expected to raise $14.2 million annually, which is right about 5.4% of our total operating budget annually for the school system. And thank you to Councilman Nakhan for bringing this up. Evidently, there is some misperception when on the ballot it says Consolidated School District Number 1. That means the entire parish of Lafayette. It does not mean District 1 of Lafayette Parish. So this tax is a parish-wide tax. Everyone in the all property owners in the parish will pay it, and all property owners in the parish will benefit. It is not dedicated solely to District 1. It is dedicated to operations and salaries and things of that nature. It's not dedicated to buildings or anything like that. So that's the history of the tax. And just to attempt to justify what we've done over the last year, I remember coming December of last year, about a month after I got elected, before I had taken office, and discussed the need to close the achievement gap for the children of Lafayette Parish, and how the prior year we had spent, or our school board had spent, fighting the superintendent over basically nothing, when there should have been differences that were easily resolved. And in the meantime, we had students in the parish that were not achieving at the rate they could. And I'm happy to say that just this morning in the paper, we saw one of the first measures that our new superintendent implemented was the Fast Forward program. And he mentioned that in his interview in April when we hired him, and how we had licenses for this program that we were not using. And what the statistics show so far in this school year, from August to now, it's been implemented in 17 schools and 3,400 students are using it. 1,142 out of those 3,400 have already completed the program in less than 40 days. And what those 1,142 students have done on average is moved from the 17th percentile in reading achievement to the 29th percentile in reading achievement. And those may not sound like dramatic gains, but they nearly doubled their reading capacity in 3 months for these children that were simply not getting the attention they deserve. So on top of that, we've seen that Lafayette High School, in the latest accountability scores that got released, moved from a B school to an A school. That's District 6 right there. Northside, perhaps more importantly, moved from an F to a D, showing improvement in some of the traditionally at-risk schools. And then, of course, our Early College Academy, one of our flagship schools, maintained its A status. So I submit that this board in particular is doing its best and trying very hard, and we're going to enter another round of budgeting very soon, and there is more to cut. I totally agree. But at the same time, these are the programs that this tax supports, and we sincerely hope that we can continue to use this money to support the programs going forward. Thank you.
Justin, what's the difference between this tax renewal proposal and what Dr. Aguilar has talked about in recent months about building 14 new schools and, improving the plant assets of all the schools?
This is a tax that goes to the operation of the school system for educational programs, for teachers, for the light bill. It goes into our general fund. That's the difference between the tax that Dr. Aguilar has been discussing and the school board members have been discussing. The possibly proposed tax would be dedicated solely to buildings. That's all this other tax would be dedicated to. But this is an entirely different property tax.
How much is the tax renewal, and how much or what percentage of that operational monies will go directly to benefit the school children?
The renewal will, I think they term it, reasonably anticipate generating $14.2 million per year. And it's about 5.4% of our total operating budget. The operating budget goes towards educational programs. It doesn't go towards construction or anything like that. So this should, if not all of it, the vast majority of it go to the classroom, to the school site.
Has the school board itself voted on the tax, in putting forward the tax renewal proposal, and what was the vote of the school board in doing so?
The school board voted 9-0 on, we had a special meeting at the beginning of October, maybe October 4th or 5th. We voted 9-0 on the resolution to put this tax renewal proposition on the ballot.
What is your understanding as to why this tax renewal continues to come up every 10 years, as opposed to why the tax doesn't just stop.
It's probably more of a philosophical question than anything, and one of the reasons why taxes increase the amount they generate. It's as the parish grows, we collect more money, be it a sales tax or a property tax. We collect more money as the parish grows, which means we need more money to educate the children. You know, the amount of money we spend per child on education has not grown dramatically over the last 30 years. I think 30 years ago it was somewhere in the neighborhood of 8,200, and now it's 9,200. So it's certainly keeping in line with inflation over the last 30 years. And so the taxes that support public education are needed because these are the taxes that fundamentally fund the school system at a level that is necessary.
Now, if you can simply state whether this is a property tax, a sales tax, or how does that tax operation work?
It's a 7.27 nil property tax levied on the entirety of Lafayette Parish.
That's all the questions I have. Anybody in our audience would like to pose questions? They're welcome to. Come on, Mr. Green, you're welcome.
Sometime tonight.
We would be happy to wait. We've got an expert videographer that knows how to edit some of the long walks out.
Hey, Justin,
Good evening, sir.
since we're talking about money, I find this is very important to me. What is the current situation regarding Common Core?
Oh, right now?
Yeah, with the school board.
We're operating under the state law that says we have to use Common Core until, I believe, the legislature passed a compromise where they're going to review the standards and make appropriate changes. And so whatever comes out of that process, that's what we'll use.
So it is being implemented now, right?
Common Core?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Approximately how much extra money is Common Core costing we, the taxpayer, in your estimation?
At this point in time, it's probably not that much. A couple of years ago it was when we were making the switch in curriculum.
How much is that much?
And it's probably, I don't know for sure. I'd hate to say, but it's over $1 million.
Over $1 million.
I think that's a safe estimate.
The reason that I personally resent Common Core and some other people can be expressed briefly. In 1984, the Supreme Court handed down a decision in the case of Grove City versus Bell. The court ruled that any educational institution with even one student who received federal aid of $1 would be considered an indirect recipient institution and thereby subject to federal regulations. So there is no reason at all why next year or the next year federal regulations cannot be instituted that says you will not do this and you will not do that. So I'm strictly against the Common Core, and I resent the $1 million being spent, which is not necessary, which I know you have no control over.
Thank you for that.
So the next time the voting comes up, and if you vote for it, I'm not going to smile at you anymore. Thank you.
That's pretty good.
You got my vote right there.
Did you have a question? You have a question, sir? You might have said that, yeah. All right. Well said, Ray. Well said. Well, sometime in the future, they're going to write a history about the school board of past years and this fight with Dr. Cooper. Nothing but shame is going to be applied to that. That's just out of line for him. You said $14 million is 5% of the operating budget. That brings us up to about $280 million overall for an operating budget. Then you talked about the tax increase. What percent is this tax increase?
It hasn't been decided. We haven't decided, we haven't voted on what to propose. You're talking about the new tax?
Yes,
The new tax, we haven't voted on any kind of decision on what we want to propose yet.
but you want us to approve it.
No, this is a different tax. On Saturday, you're voting for a different tax than the one for school buildings. This is not an increase, this is a
Okay,
renewal.
when are y'all gonna decide what percentage increase?
Shortly, like within the next 3 weeks or so.
Gonna hold you to that. Thank you.
Sure thing.
Thank you very much. Any more questions? You're done.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate you coming by. You good luck on the tax. Renewal, that is.
Renewal. As many times as possible.
But this, she's gonna have to ask her daddy at home. Oh, she can come up here. Yeah, she can come up. Okay. As long as you're not asking me. Introduce yourself.
My name is Serafina Santani, and my daddy is Justin Santani, and since he won the school board, he was getting a trophy, but he didn't get it yet.
Thank you so much.
What'd she say, Frank?
We're gonna have to turn this over to Carol for the rest of the program, and he's gonna answer that question for you, right?
He didn't hear her either.
About this.
Oh, yeah, since the issue came up, yeah, go ahead.
Right.
Go ahead, Carol, introduce
Good evening. My name is Daniel Noel, and I represent On Track by 5, the Child Care Resource and Referral Alliance that is part of the Lafayette Parish School System, but we operate under a different, completely different budget, different system. In most areas of the state, these are actually private agencies. It just so happens that in Lafayette Parish and in Calcasieu Parish, these agencies happen to fall within their school systems, kind of a test program. But I just want to address that, yes, our name is being changed actually January 1st. So we are in the process, we're trying to phase out. So we're not printing anything with our name on it. And yes, obviously with Dr. Cooper being here when the name was first originated, that probably was not looked at or taken into account. So with Dr. Aguilar and moving along to the new name, the decision was made not to actually pursue any type of legal battle in that. So it was merely just trying to get out of what had been done and move on. So quite honestly, the terms that were used to us was, let's just put that aside and move forward and not concentrate on trying to dwell on what has happened. So that's basically where we are. Obviously, we can't go back and rewrite what happened, but we are just moving forward and trying to minimize what has happened. So that's all I kind of want to address, and that we are doing our best to move forward. And this agency is basically for the benefit of children 0 to 5 years of age. It's a program focused on that. So it's kind of even prior to the school system. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Children age 0 to 5.
Yes, sir.
Are we talking about toddlers and people wearing diapers and something that the parents should be handling?
0 to 5, early child care learning. Yes, sir.
What do you mean, zero?
New board? New board?
Slow down. You have a question on the calendar, please refrain until he answers it. If you want to have another question, come up to the mic. We run it that way so we can have this gentleman win a award. Thank you very much.
Yeah, which one? The program is directed for early learning. It's focused on trying to identify the issues in children that are not getting any type of early quality child care, that are not put in any type of, I guess for us in the room, the term would be daycare, but now it's an early learning facility. So that's what the focus is.
So if you have another question, that didn't satisfy you.
It's not coming out of the Lafayette Parish School System budget. So I can answer that.
Thank you.
Yeah, we just got a certain amount of time.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Jean Paul, would you please come up, please? I believe that Frank mentioned to everyone that the other candidate, Mr. Comeaux, had to be in Houston, I believe, and so he's not going to be with us. But we do have one candidate. We appreciate you being here. Thanks a lot. Yeah.
I'm the only one here. I'll rest my case. Thank you very much.
You can't make any mistakes that way. But anyhow, we got 5 minutes before like we usually do. He'll let you know 30 seconds before. At the end, the summation will be also 5 minutes.
Still gonna get questions? Is that what
You're gonna have questions in between after you make your 5. You have 2 minutes question.
Okay.
Sure.
Anyhow. Good evening. My name is Paul Coussan. Thank you for having me. I've been before the group a couple times, but I do see some new faces. So to those of you who I have not met, I'll give you a brief introduction. I was raised here in this town. All 4 of my grandparents were educators. My grandfather was the dean of the College of Education at UL. His name was Dr. Coussan. My dad was raised here in town. My grandfather on my mom's side was a teacher at Delgado Community College. He taught draftsmanship. And my grandmother on that side also taught elementary school education. My grandmother here in Lafayette taught in Lafayette Parish School System for 30 years. So I grew up in a household of educators that had very high standards for me. And being a product of this community, I am looking at a rare opportunity to take my community service to the next level. I've been an award-winning small business owner here in town. I was part of the top 20 under 40 3 years ago for my work at my office, which we've grown from 10 employees to 35 employees in the last 6 years. I have a title company here in town. I also have a real estate investment company where we've built 10 houses in the last 3 years, including some right here off of Johnson Street in Holden Heights subdivision. We redeveloped what literally was a crack house on a corner into 3 brand new houses where young families have moved in, and it's really rejuvenated the area. And that's a small part of what I'd like to see for our entire community, to plant seeds of economic growth and to have the rest of the community grow up around it. We can do that on big issues like infrastructure. We can do it on big issues like education, both K through 12 and on higher education. And we can do it on things like early childhood education, which we talked about earlier, from a state perspective. All of that has to do with the state budget. Ladies and gentlemen, the state budget, as you know, is the major issue that's hanging out there. And if we can't fix the state budget, then all of these other priorities, they just go by the wayside. Because right now we can't fund what we need to fund because we can't cut what we need to cut as a matter of state government is concerned. We have too many protected and dedicated funds over the last 40 years in our Constitution and in our legislation. And until we go back and reprioritize all of those things that are the monies that are being spent and looking at what does not meet that threshold, meet the priorities of 2015, until we can go back and look at each one of those expenditures and see if they're still a priority today and cut those that are not, we're going to be in a difficult situation. So I want to be a part of the solution. I have 3 young kids. My wife and I have been married for 8 years. I'm a product of this community. I want to remain a part of this community. I'm going to grow my family here. I'm going to grow my business here. And I'm going to serve this community as a state representative should you elect me. So I appreciate the time you're giving me tonight, and I'll be happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you for coming back. We appreciate that. I read in the paper that two candidates are in the runoff, you and Andre Comeaux, and both of y'all got tremendous amount of votes, and it's close. It's a very close election, 4,500 to 4,100. That's correct. I think the third party, the third candidate, got about 2,400, 2,500. So it's going to be quite a challenge, and it's still going to be a very close race. And we, as members of the community, appreciate all of y'all in keeping it a very clean race. I mean, y'all's race is an example from what I've seen of how a race should be run. So thank y'all, and thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Could you just give us a brief rundown of the geographical boundaries of State District, Representative District 45?
Sure. Okay, if you're looking at a map of Lafayette, on the western boundary, I go all the way out to Fieldspan. On the eastern boundary, I go to University Avenue. So if you think about the streets that connect those two, we're talking about Congress, Johnson Street, Eras Landry, Dulles, on this side of the Vermilion River. So Elise's Pizza is the geographic center of my district. So if you live around here, you can vote for me. No, I don't go far. So when you're going down Johnson Street, the exact boundary is when you hit Ridge Road. Ridge Road is the boundary. You can take a right on Ridge, and Ridge goes all the way out to about Rue de Bellier, and then you take a right on Rue de Bellier, and then if you took a left on Congress, it goes all the way out to Fieldspan, right on Fieldspan, right on Dulles, so now you're coming back towards the city. Then Westgate is another boundary. My district is on the right side of Westgate, but not on the left side. I go all the way up to Cameron, comes back over from Cameron all the way over to University, thereabouts. So I've got three major healthcare systems. We've got Lafayette General, of course the Old Lords is in the district, Lafayette General, University Health and Hospitals, which is now operated by Lafayette General, and Southwest Regional, which is also operated by Lafayette General. So three major hospital centers, all located in the district. Much of UL's property is in the district, all, like the Cajun Dome, Cajun Field, although the university proper is carved out of the district along with Girard Park. So it's kind of a little gerrymandering over there. But that's pretty much it. Does anybody have any questions about where they live and if they're in the district? There's an app for that. So I can show you if you are, and I can show you where you vote. We know all the precincts, and there's 25 precincts and about 13 voting locations. So 25 precincts combined into 14 voting locations. Yes, sir, Judge.
You've told us about you, you've told us about your precinct. What's your platform? What do you plan to do and make changes?
Sure. Let's start with the budget. The first thing I intend on doing, one of the major expenditures in the budget is higher education, okay? Year in and year out, including right now where we have a big deficit, the only two things left on the chopping block are healthcare and education, higher education. So one of my first items on my agenda would be to allow higher education institutions more autonomy. So regardless of the budget situation in the state, they can still succeed and be a part of our economy in Lafayette for one, but of course there's other places with higher education institutions. But right now, for every dollar that UL or SLCC receives from the state, 57 cents goes back to Baton Rouge to satisfy bureaucratic requirements. So what does that leave? That leaves 43 cents to actually go to the operations of hiring quality administrators and professors, retaining quality students and putting them into the workforce. So you know, regardless of the budget situation, because with the fluctuation in the price of oil like we have right now, we're down to $50 a barrel, we're up at 110. Every dollar of the that the price of oil changes has an $11 million impact on the state budget. So when you drop $60, of course, the price of the budget in the state of Louisiana is going to dramatically change. So we need to give UL and SLCC and other institutions of higher education more autonomy so that they can operate in a competitive educational scenario. Secondly, we need to look at, like I was talking about earlier, how do we open up the budget so that higher education and healthcare are not the only two things left to cut. There are many protected and dedicated funds throughout the state. I'm talking some minuscule, some larger, and they're very local, parochial, where you go to New Orleans and they've got these little neighborhood associations that may have their own little budget that they've been getting money from the state since 1974, which was the last time that we had a state constitution. Since then, every year you see these constitutional amendments on the ballot. Anybody ever have a chance to really read the constitutional amendments? They're very long, and they're very difficult to understand, and so it's really hard to gauge how people are going to vote on them. Some pass, some don't, and you don't get a lot of information. But unfortunately, the ones that do pass that have to do with protecting and dedicating funds that not everybody necessarily gets to benefit from cannot be overturned by a simple legislative majority. I mean, you have to go back to the drawing board and get the Constitution changed again. So once the Constitution is changed, it's hard to change it back. And but I'm saying that we need to rethink our current constitutional situation and some of the statutory dedications, and look at what can be, what should be reopened, what should be allowed to be cut, and look at our current set of priorities in the state of Louisiana. Another major priority is our infrastructure. We've got a $1 billion backlog, including many projects here in Lafayette. Now, while Verrott School Road isn't in the district, that's a prime example of a road that's 25 years behind. The intersection at Eras Landry and Bertrand. Everybody remember when they did a little construction job over there? That took 18 years to complete. 18 years from the time that it got put on the books to the time it was done a couple of years ago. And I talked to the people that were involved with it, and I said, why does that happen? And they said, well, there's a lot of finger pointing between state government and local government, but ultimately it's DOTD who's got the who sets the priority. And we haven't had a highway plan in place redone since the Foster administration. Every administration since then has just re-upped and revised Foster's plan for roads. So we need to go back to the drawing board and look at how those infrastructure projects are funded, the priority that they're given, and whether or not there's a more efficient way to do it at a cheaper cost. Okay, I mean that's what I'm not talking about higher taxes. We're talking about there's a lot of money that's that should be available, and it's not being spent efficiently. So therefore, the costs go up over time. 18 years, the budget's going to change a little bit on a project. And just for an example, another example, it's the intersection at Ducey and Johnson Street, where they put the little turning lane from Ducey on to Johnston. I think it's opened up things over there, as far as traffic is concerned, wonderfully. It cost them almost $900,000 just to do that turning lane right there. So, the expenditures are they're not pennies. But so education, infrastructure, with the budget on top. I mean, we have to worry about the budget, how we're going to cut things before we worry about how we're going to fund things. You also asked, the last time I was here, you made the comment when you came up and you said that you thought that I had too many friends because I was on the executive level of the Chamber of Commerce, which my opponent was also part of the chamber, though I actually was asked to raise a little bit higher and serve as an executive. I served at an executive level in the Chamber of Commerce. I was the top 20 under 40. I was the Leukemia Lymphoma Man of the Year in 2008. So this isn't the first time I've tried to step up and do something good for the community. But you said I had too many connections. Well, with all those connections, I'm the only one in my race that didn't sign any pledges to any of my connections. And I take, and a lot of people have complimented me on that because I have to look people in the eye who have helped me through my professional career and tell them, it doesn't matter my relationship is going to be directly to my constituents, and that's the way it's going to stay. So I don't make pledges. The pledges are what get us into the issues that we're in now. I pledge to my God, my country, my family, and my constituents. So that's where I'm going to stick on the pledge. So although that's not a policy piece, it is a personal policy of mine. I am against Common Core for much of the same reason as we talked about earlier. I do believe that there is two options here. There's local control of education and there's non-local control of education. And I'm in favor of local control of education. I think Common Core is on the wrong side of that equation. So therefore I'm against Common Core. And so, we have to look closely into that. It's a political uphill battle at this point. Thank you. There's a political uphill battle, but as Justin mentioned, there is a committee working right now, which initially there were some concerns about the makeup of the committee, but at this point, from the articles that I've read, there are some significant changes afoot in the current Common Core set of standards. Now, does that take away the fact that it's has outside influences? No. But as far as the standards themselves, they will have more Louisiana standards. Now, the question is, when we get our curriculum, are we still going to have Boston and New York companies sending down the books? And, more than likely so, because we don't have too many Louisiana textbook companies. But we probably need one,
I'd buy it from them.
I know you would, and that's what we need. That's the ultimate problem is that, you've got national companies that are producing the materials. So, we have to make sure that when we have Louisiana standards that we're getting the curriculum to support those standards and not vice versa. It's the tail wagging the dog. Common Core, so those are my main issues. And I'm a small business owner, so I've got a bead on budgets. There's no question year in and year out I've got to sit down on a quarterly basis and look at the work that I'm bringing into the office, the work that we're not bringing into the office, and we have to worry about what cuts we're going to make when we don't bring in the amount of work that we anticipate. So budgets are nothing new to me. The budget that we have in our house, the budget we have in our business, now we're looking at a budget in the state. And you can only play gimmicks for so long and kick the can down the road. It's time to step up to the plate and make some hard decisions and figure out how we can succeed in the state without relying upon TARP money, without relying upon Katrina money, and without relying upon the federal government for as much as the budget as we always have relied upon over the last 7 years, which is a big reason why our budget is so out of whack. We have all these federal funds coming in, and when the federal government says no more, then we're in a bind. I had a professor that just said, don't mess with the feds, they got the A-bomb. And the A-bomb to me, is the appropriations. I mean, it's not the A-bomb, that's the one you're thinking of. I mean, it's the fact that if they don't give you the money that you're expecting, you're going to be in a bind. So I don't want to be beholden to the federal government any more than you do. So we just have to make sure that our budget is resilient enough to succeed without the federal government's involvement. Although Louisiana is a major taker of federal funds, disproportionately relative to the rest of the country. So.
I was reading in the Daily Advertiser this morning that there was a report concerning grassroots support for an alternative route for the I-49 expansion rather than going through the downtown Lafayette corridor. Do you have a position on the expansion of the I-49 corridor project through Lafayette or some other alternative routing?
A couple of years ago, a state legislator in Lafayette Parish, or state senator, but a Lafayette Parish legislator proposed a resolution to study a different route, and the consensus was that it would set us back another 20 to 25 years on building I-49 South at all. And I don't think we need to be taking steps backwards. I think there's methods to build highways now, and that's up for discussion as far as the best way to build an elevated highway when you're dealing with urban areas. And I think we've got professionals that can assist us with that process. I'm in favor of I-49 South. I think it's necessary. I think it's necessary from a hurricane evacuation. I think it's necessary for economic vitality. And I think it's necessary for the future of Lafayette to be as successful as we can be, to have an arterial through here that we can generate commerce north and south and not always have to go east-west through Baton Rouge.
I'm sure you've learned a great deal crisscrossing the district. What two important lessons would you say that you've learned that would make you a better public servant for District 45?
I've learned that even though I've got more education and more degrees and more businesses than my opponent, none of that stuff matters. It really doesn't matter. I'm telling you that right now. I've learned that it doesn't matter how much I know, because if I don't listen and I don't hear what the person that I'm talking to at the front door, if I don't hear what they have to say, then my job has not been completed. So the main thing I've learned is just to listen and to try to learn about what the people in Lafayette think are the most important issues. And a resounding answer, of course, has been education. Education is the main thing. And then we talk about the budget. Budget's important. It's important because it sets forth the rest of our priorities. But the main thing people are asking about is jobs and economy. I got a note today from a lady whose son-in-law had lost his job. The son had got brain cancer last year. I mean, there's just this incredible testimony and just asking us to do everything we can to try to help the economy. She didn't care whether or not I could do anything about Saudi Arabia pumping oil, or OPEC. She didn't care about any of those things. She just wanted me to learn about her family's plight and to know that whatever we can do, she wanted us to do it. And so, that's the main thing I've heard on the street, knocking door to door.
Of your two top priorities, which ones do you think that you could get done within 12 to 18 months of you taking office?
I think it kind of depends upon who we have as our next governor. The governor is going to call a special session, and when the governor makes his call, the governor sets the parameters as to what that special session is going to entail. And he can limit it or he can expand it. Both of the gubernatorial candidates, I believe, have different views of government. Does everybody agree with that? And as one of 105 House members, I'm going to take the opportunity at the special session to begin to build coalitions. Because individually, I won't be able to do as much as I can as if I am out there convincing the Acadiana delegation to convince the Baton Rouge and New Orleans delegation why our priorities should be such that the budget is opened up so that we can make more cuts across the board, so that we can ensure quality education for our children, and so that we can ensure infrastructure is properly funded and the needs are met. So I do believe that with whoever we have as governor, and when they set those parameters, we'll still need to build coalitions to get valuable measures passed. But my priorities are not going to change. The governor's priorities might change, but our priorities are not going to change. And I think both of the things that we talked about are within 18-month type of plans. I mean, they're special session, regular session, and then another session next year, because that's within the 18 months you talked about. So we're talking about 2 sessions and a special session. There should be meaningful change in our state budget and in the funding process for education and healthcare within that time.
You've run a youthful campaign, and I take it that's probably due to your age and your family upbringing, and just your involvement in the community. What word or words of encouragement could you give to other young residents of Lafayette, how they can be active and make Lafayette a better place to live?
Tell me, describe what you mean by youthful. Because we talk about
I'm thinking 30s, but you might be older.
I'm 37. I'm older than Drew Brees. Drew Brees should retire pretty soon. And so I'm 37 years old. I think I've had a modicum of success, in my young career. My family, we've worked hard. 12 years ago, I didn't have a car. 12 years ago, I went to my grandfather's house in New Orleans and begged him to borrow his 1990 Ford Ranger single cab that the windows didn't roll up. And that's what I drove to Lafayette in after I finished law school. Didn't own it. I drove it for a year. I don't think I took my wife on a date in it. I think I actually upgraded to an extended cab 1992 car before then. So the advice that I would give to is really not just young people. You know, when you look at, let's say, voter trends, and you say, well, the young people don't vote. You know, you got to get the young people out. And I kind of thought that they were talking about 25 and younger, 30 and younger. Well, once we started looking at the data, young and voter turnout and lower voter turnout has to do with 45 years of age and younger don't turn out to vote. So 45 years old is not young, I don't think, by anyone's standard. You should be voting at 45. So here we are. I still have to engage and influence and persuade and encourage 45-year-old men and women to go vote. So I think it starts with, you know, just civic engagement and why it matters. And it matters because our kids' education can be affected, the infrastructure, our streets, our roads, and an overall mood of the economy, you know, is affected. So you can feel when you have bad government and good government, and as you know, the concerned citizens for good government, you get a sense when things are going in the wrong direction, which I get a sense for that right now, and that's why I'm running for office. But what I would tell young people is, and I'm actually going to speak tomorrow at a political science class, which I didn't take political science in undergrad. Not a single class. I was a finance major and an internal auditing with an internal auditing focus. So I never took political science. But when I go talk to those kids tomorrow, I'm going to tell them that regardless of the class that you're in, regardless of when you finish school and the first or second job that you get, that you always have an opportunity to stand up and lead in your community, whether it's starting right with your family, and it's starting with the company that you're in, starting with a group like this. And I know that there's, you know, Justin has commented that he's been coming here for some time. You know, I mean, that's a testament to somebody being involved with something where easily they could have said, I'm not going to this event and I'm not going to consistently. So I would just encourage people to take a step out of their comfort zone and put their nose into places, and you'll start realizing that the decision-making abilities that we have, that I have, are up to par, short a few years and a few lessons learned, but up to par with anybody else that's in the business, whether it's politics or UL administration or the biggest businesses that you have in town. When I started working on different with the Cajun Dome Commission that I was on for 6 years, I was sitting next to Dr. Savoie, I was sitting next to Dr. Azar, Dr. Dwayne Bowie, and they were asking me questions, because I had a law degree, and they just wanted me to read some of the statutes that were available. And I mean, that's just one small bit of the way I could help them, but they were relying upon me to give them some advice. So I would just encourage young people to think about what they've learned, the experiences they've had, the parents and the grandparents that have taught them certain things, and to step out of the community, and they'd soon figure out that they really can make a difference. So, and that's what I realized, and that's why I'm running.
Are you a lawyer too?
Yes, sir. I'm a real estate title attorney.
No, maybe.
But I have read your Constitution that you gave me. When I was in law school, I was the president of the Federalist Society for Law and Public Policy, which is a conservative legal organization that was actually started by Antonin Scalia. So I brought down Scalia from Washington to speak to my constitutional law class, and I have a great, I got to sit with him in the table one side of this, about 10 of us, and we got to sit with him and ask him anything we wanted. Everybody familiar with Antonin Scalia? I got to ask him any questions I wanted, and of course, I wanted to talk about constitutional law, and all he wanted to talk about was the Yankees and how many children he produced. And he said that one of his missions in life was to, he has, I think, 9 children, And he said he wanted to fill the earth with Catholic conservatives. That was his mission in life. He said not to become Supreme Court justice, just to put a bunch of conservative kids out there. So, and I think some of them are not conservative, so that kind of irks them a little bit. But you know, when you teach kids to think on their own, they're not all going to think in the same way. But hopefully, most of them will agree with us. You know, that's what I'll try to do.
Let me ask, is there any other additional questions from? Well, I was going to introduce you, so I'll take that. Come on up. We certainly owe a round of applause for Mr. Jean-Paul.
Oh, well, let me ask this. Can I ask a question?
Yeah, sure.
Who would be willing to say, I'd like to see how many people voted early? So it's about 30% of the crowd, you know? What's that? And I voted early. Yeah, the early voting turnout has been record-setting, and yeah, for the state. And so, you know, just encourage everyone that hasn't voted to show up on Saturday. But you know, it's a good sign that we did have early voting. You know, just as far as people being engaged in the process, let's just hope they were informed and engaged.
We appreciate everyone coming here this evening. Thank you all very much. And don't forget to go out and vote. We'll have a meeting on the first Monday of December, and we're looking forward to that. Thank you all very much for being here.